episodes.
Yeah,
Cool. Lucky number 7.
Lucky numbers. Here we are. Welcome to number 7 guest out of 24. Delighted to welcome an award-winning serial entrepreneur, Austin Okolo.
Thank you for having me, man. Honestly, it's an amazing initiative. Second you told me about it, 24 hours, 24 podcasts, I said, I need to get involved.
Oh, mate, it's awesome. Listen, it's really strange. I've been based at Plus X for a while, and I've been following your journey on social media. I watch you on there, and it's such an inspiration on what you've achieved, graduating this year and businesses that you've set up in that time, which is fascinating, which we're going to delve into. But look, I'm going to start off. I just want to kick straight off and just talk to me a little bit about life growing up and like where does this entrepreneurial spirit come from? Talk to me about that.
No, it's a good question. I feel like as I've kind of gone older, a lot of life and our experiences linked to our early childhood. And I definitely say like I can relate. So my dad was a big, good entrepreneur, and I think he really instilled that into me. Obviously, came from an athletic background, so opportunities you kind of have to make for yourself. And I think that I always saw a work ethic in both my parents, and especially my dad. Watched him grow up as a business owner. He owned the barbershop that I used to go to get my haircuts. So I used to get 3 haircuts, and I think that if looking back now, I think a big part of me looking at entrepreneur as a potential path in life. Obviously in the school system, you don't really preach it in school, so I think the only kind of idea I had as a path for entrepreneurship was through my parents, and I think I've always been entrepreneurial. So I don't know the typical story of selling sweets in school, but I have a very kind of early history of entrepreneurship. So in school, I think I saw my first item. It was football boots for £10. My friend Tom, and then from then I was like, what? Like I can sell a product and make money from it. And I thought, cool, let me see what else I can sell. Selling my old clothes, my old shoes, like, it's damn decent. But started running out of clothing. I said, what can I do next? So I started selling my friends' clothing and taking commission from it. And it didn't actually work out on this. So what happened, I think twice I got close to selling them their clothing. One time I sold it and I went to my friend, older year, about 2 years older than me. I said, I sold your shoes. Can I get my £10 commission, please? It was like, next time. Obviously being like the younger kind of person, kind of just brushed it aside. Second time I was in London, West London, Hayes, where I grew up, and I went to sell someone's hat for them, and then there was so many stains inside the hat, and I went to the person to give it to them, and he looked at all the stains inside the hat and said, sorry guy, I can't buy this. So in the end, it didn't go to plan, but I always had that kind of entrepreneurship background of like, I enjoyed the fact that I can make money from nothing in terms of selling a product or service.
I love that, and even the fact that I often talk a lot on my podcast, and I've done talks as well, keynote talks about failure. Like it's interesting you say about your dad owning a barbershop. So what brought me to Brighton originally, I used to own a hair salon. I was part of Tony and Guy group. We done barbering stuff. Never a hairdresser. It's purely a business thing for me. But it didn't work out. So I talk about how I had to close, I had to sell one of my properties, and it was a really tough time. But the things you learn from that, just listening to that early stage from you, going, done a couple of things, didn't work out, but you learn from little bits and pieces on the way, which I find fascinating. But talk to me a little bit. So look, at 18 years old, most kids, most people, I'm generalising a little bit, but generally about partying maybe and getting in. But for you launched a fashion brand.
Yeah.
So talk, what's the inspiration behind was that from those little bits thinking, I can actually make some money from?
Yeah, of course. So I want to get into that, and we're quick on touch on what you mentioned about failure as well, because it's really important for me, for the audience, in that failing forwards and failing fast. And I actually read a book called Shoe Dog. I'm an avid book reader, and Shoe Dog was written by the owner of Nike, Phil Knight, about his journey. And one thing he said, he started quite early on the Nike journey, and he said that one lesson he took from it was failing fast and failing forward. And what that means is that maybe me starting my journey young, it meant I could fail fast. So me taking a failure in my adventure at 13, 14, 15, because I still got a lot of life left to live to actually, rectify those failures. And I think that the reason why you need to start whatever you're doing early is because it gives you kind of the opportunity to fail fast. Because that means that you still got time to kind of, rectify those failures. I think with my life, that's why I was so early. I've had a lot of failures, but I've been able to fail fast by starting young so I can rectify it. So really interesting. But
I do want to touch on something actually you mentioned, which I find quite interesting about, like you talk about education, because obviously you went on to university and you studied, you got a degree. Talk about sort of in regard that entrepreneurship it's encouraged a lot more. Like, I'm obviously a lot older than you, and I think I'll go back to when I was at school, and entrepreneurship just wasn't a thing back then, really. It was, and it is encouraged a little bit more in school, but still we're not teaching people about entrepreneurship. Like business in that way, about entrepreneurship is not encouraged in that way. Do you agree with that? What's your...
Yeah, like I 100% agree, but I feel like, entrepreneurs are the outliers of society in the sense that we can't all be entrepreneurs. People have got to take the jobs, kind of thing. So I understand from like a social society's point of view of like you can't kind of make everybody be entrepreneurs, couldn't really work out. But in saying that, I think that there's a lot of entrepreneurs that can go into a work environment and the entrepreneurs can help themselves. I think you can still work with somebody and be like an entrepreneur, because entrepreneurship preaches things like taking risks, which I think you can do within a job. Being creative, marketing, bring ideas to the forefront. I think that you don't need to own a business to be able to have that mindset. And I think maybe educating people on entrepreneurship, rather than being scared that you'll do that and they'll run away, you have no more people to take jobs. Maybe they might still take the jobs, but bring those entrepreneurial traits to that job, which might help you elevate to the next level. More independent thinkers. I think what we need in society nowadays is more independent thinkers and independent thinking. I love reading, so I read a book called Linchpins, and I spoke about the history of kind of like the school system. I spoke about the reason why the school system is set up how it is, in terms of we all have to dress the same, all do the same exams. It's very like robotic. That's because during the Industrial Revolution, you needed robots, because you didn't want anybody to be out of line in their job. Because if they're making things for the Industrial Revolution, it's very systemized. So if you have somebody that now is a bit against the grain and goes against the kind of process, it could be a disaster. But the issue is now we don't live in those times anymore. Now we need a lot more, we've got all sorts of issues, the government, climate change, all these things. We need independent thinkers now. And our education system cultivates people that can't think for themselves, people that, dress like everybody else, do this, do that, told what to do. And I think that one thing that we need to do if you want to make real change and impact in the world is encourage independent thought a lot more. Especially nowadays where jobs are getting like becoming robots nowadays, like speakers. Maybe back in the day there probably might be someone holding the mic towards us. Now all this now, even self-checkout, things like this, so we need people that maybe can take jobs that require more independent thought, because the jobs that require just manual labor are getting taken up by robots.
I love that way of thinking. I think I completely agree with you. Like, it's an archaic way. Like, it's interesting you say about that book, like Lynchpin. Like, for me, the education system's so archaic in the way that we teach, the way we, we test people with exams and that type of process. People don't necessarily always respond to that well. I wasn't that academic at school, and you sort of look at, but you more creative in that sense. Like you said, being more independent thinkers and encouraging. I love that thought of just encouraging more, not necessarily entrepreneur, but independent thinkers. And because that for me, that system's got to change. The education system's got to change at the top, isn't it, to filter down, to make that happen, I guess.
Exactly, 100%. I think that there are benefits to the education system. There are some benefits, but especially me, I'm dyslexic. I didn't get diagnosed until I got to university. So I went for my whole childhood doing normal conditions on exams, even though there were certain signs that could be picked up, but they didn't identify that. And I think that even things like that, where it's because you put everyone in the same bucket. So even me being neurodiverse, I had to do the same exam as somebody that was different kind of different brain. So it's the way it's set up. Like the one size fits all model never works. I've got a degree in genetics, and one thing I learned in school, in uni, was that I think I don't quote me on this one, but I think the stat is that 20% of the medication only suits a certain group of I think the medicine we use for like paracetamol, thing like that, only helps about 20% of people. So there's a percentage of people who the medication doesn't do anything for. Because you can't give somebody one paracetamol, another person expect their body to react to it the same way. And the one size fits all model just never works. And I think our education system is literally the one size fits all. You've got to do the same exam on the same time conditions, and logically speaking, it doesn't make sense because we're all different.
Talk to me about that. Because I find it fascinating, because we're delving into obviously the entrepreneurial stuff in Born to Stand Out and the fashion brand you launched, but you still chose the path of it. Like we're talking about education, you still chose that path of education. Why genetics, and why? Why
so I think that I think growing up, maybe because of school, whatever, even though I had entrepreneurial tendencies, I never saw it as actually an option, as a viable option. I think there was a part of me where, and as any young person understands, and I think people love asking this question, but at 18 years old, no one knows what they want to do with their lives. And even at 40, 50, no one knows what they want to do. So I think there's a lot of pressure nowadays on the young generation to know what you want to do, but it's unfair. You need to give people different time to taste different avenues,
Yeah.
as you've seen. I think with me, I just thought, there was a next best step. I wanted the experience going to university. Obviously there was peer pressure from my parents as well, who said that there was this option. And also, like, what else am I gonna do? Like, I had a brand that was very early doors. I was 18 years old, so I didn't really have any other options. It was just like what I was told to do, and I wasn't against it because I knew that it would help me get a job, give me a safety net. It would also give me experience to live by myself. So I was excited for it, and probably the science route, because I think linked to my background in dyslexia, I'm not the best at writing English. I used to dread essays and the writing. Like, if you put me in the law school, probably would have killed myself because I couldn't just deal with like all the reading. And then maths, I wasn't the best at it. I tried to do A-level maths. I think I did it for a term, half a term, and I had to drop out because I was so bad at maths. I even moved school to do maths because the school that I was in, they let me do maths there because I didn't get the grades. So I had to move school to do maths, and I was still bad at it. I remember I was so bad at it that my combined percentage was less than 10%. So usually 10% percentage is a better way to look at things. And you get like 50%, but it's like 50 out of 25. My score was so bad that even the percentage couldn't save how bad the score was. And I just wasn't good at maths. But I think because science didn't involve any kind of grammar, anything like that, it was more like logical thinking and like understanding. Even now, like, I read a lot of books now, and kind of I've already in this podcast said some things I learned from the book, so I'm good at learning, understanding things. I think science, they don't care about your spelling too much, your writing, they just care that you actually understand the content. I think science allowed me to kind of, was the one thing I excelled at, because I could just excel at understanding the content, and also just what I was best at, to be honest.
Yeah, I love that. That's really interesting. Look, but you talk to me a little bit about Born to Stand Out. Like,
Yeah.
so what inspired you, like, to 18? I'm gonna launch my own fashion label.
I think it's probably one of the most important skills I think anyone can have is curiosity. I think from a very, very young age, I've always just been curious. I've always been adventurous. Even, selling my products when I was year 7, year 10, I was just very curious. I thought, maybe I can sell this and make money. And I thought, another friend who started a fashion brand in the year above me, I remember, it was on Instagram, and he had like this clothing of his own, like, I'd never seen it before. It was like Roman numerals. I asked him, what is that? And he goes, oh, it's like a fashion brand. I was like, what? You got a fashion brand? I was like, how can I do it? He goes, oh, you got to do this and do that and do that. I was like, okay, cool. It sounds a bit long. Let me leave it. But I think that thought stood the back of my mind for a long time. Was like, that's so cool. He has got a fashion brand. And then when I got to year 13 now, I just said, I'm just going to do it. I'm going to go for it. And even to this day, like, the way I think my life, I just do it. I don't really think failing fast, as I mentioned earlier. Like, I started my YouTube channel last week. I decided I was going to start a YouTube channel a week before. I think a lot of people, they even want to start a YouTube channel for like a year, but I was like, a week before this next step, let's just do it. You know what I'm saying? I think I always had that attitude of like, let's do it, like, see what happens. I've always been looking for an adventure, and I think that's the word right now that I really love is adventure. I think even now I'm always looking for adventures, and I think at that age I thought it would be a good adventure. And then I just, I said, let me start it, see how it goes. I thought if I can buy at the time 15 t-shirts, sell it for £20, it cost me £7 to make it. That's £150 profit. And as at 13 years old, I'm thinking, yeah, like, that's amazing, £150. So I was gonna buy me school lunch for the rest of the month. So I just went from it, and then I think maybe my talent showed, and just went from strength to strength.
I love it. A couple of things I take out from what you're saying. One, that how curious you are, which is such a brilliant skill to have, I think, to be, because, and ultimately as well, being so open-minded for opportunities. There's opportunities out there, and going, actually, I'm going to try that. And like you said, if it doesn't work out, I'll fail fast. I learn from it, and I'll go and do the next thing. But I've always been a believer. I believe life's an opportunity. So for me, I've tried many things, failed, but I'll constantly. I'm a bit of a yes man, so people will say to me, "Do you want to do that?" I go, "Yeah, that sounds like a good idea." So I'd rather do that and try it and go, oh, "It's not worked out" or whatever. But to have that experience, for me, that's such an important thing.
That's the beauty of it. You never know where it might go. That's the beauty of it. I think there was one book that I love, was called How to Be Rich. It was written by the richest man in the world in 1960, and he spoke about business, and he said that to build a good business, you need this, and need this. You can have all those things, and it might not go to plan. However, that's what gives it life. That's what gives it zest. He's a word. That's what gives it zest. I think not knowing whether it'll work out or not is what makes it fun. I think the fact that we can do something. I think if we knew what we're going to do is going to work out, we would do it, but it wouldn't be as fun and adventurous. I think the beauty is in knowing that I might win, I might lose. That's what makes it fun. I think that's what it's all about.
And then it's because a lot of people, I've had people on the podcast who have, they've sold businesses. I spoke to Kevin Byrne, who sold Checker Trade for 100 million.
Wow.
More money than you ever know what to do with. But you listen to that man talk about that business and how much he sold it for, and yet the passion he had for the business when he was running it, the journey that he was on, that's where his happiness lied. When he got that money, it was just almost an anticlimax.
Exactly.
And you go, you're chasing something, or you feel like you're chasing something. And I always use it in a lot of talks I say about life. It's a journey, not a destination.
Yeah.
And it's such an important thing. And I try, but it's hard to sometimes get in that mindset when you're in that journey and things are not going well. Maybe it's hard to keep that positivity and
of course.
and trying to enjoy the journey as much as you should, I guess.
100%. I think, something I always preach, that fall in love the journey, fall in love the process, because I think we could all relate to a time where we really want something, we got it, and then for the same. And that could be as simple as a Christmas present. You really want that, you got it now. And, and there's probably things in our life that were, a player that once was a couple of years ago. And, money, like, it's kind of, I feel like these man-made things, like, they don't have the real value and the real deep meaning behind it. And I think that's really why when you get a certain amount of money, it's kind of anticlimax, because like, I got it now, but I'm still the same person, kind of thing. I think university is the biggest one in terms of a lot of people, we're all happy for our degrees, but we're kind of like, we got the degree, you work 4 years for it, and you kind of want to feel like something, but you just like,
euphoria,
yeah, but at the same time you just feel like it was just in the day, just like the degree, kind of what's next now. And because of the fact, no matter what you do, you're always gonna get that feeling. That's what the journey matters, and the fun's in the journey, not the destination. I think you look at football, I'm a big football fan. If you look at people going to the final, the fun is actually getting the final, winning the knockout stages, and they win the trophy, and it feels good. But it's like the fun was actually, fighting with your teammates to get to the final. And one thing that I think changed my life recently, which I looked at, was a guy called Jordan Peterson. He's a best-selling author, 12 Rules of Life. He said something very, very profound. I used to always think that happiness is the North Star, but he said something about be as good as you can and play for happiness. They asked him, so why do you do what you do? This is Jordan Peterson, amazing person, travels all over the world, helps people, bestseller. It's like, why do you keep doing what you do? And he goes, to see what happens. That's the reason, was to see what happens, because to have an adventure. And I think that's why I used to think, I should aim for happiness. But I think with happiness I don't think you should aim for that, because there's many reasons, but one of the reasons he does give is because sometimes to be the best person you can be, unhappiness might come of that. As you mentioned, that person went on a journey and it was tough times with it. So on your journey to be happy, there can be unhappy times. And I think that the reason why you can't aim for happiness is because that you want in life, you need balance of the reason why we have good days is because we had bad days. We appreciate good days because of the bad days. I think in life, the balance, and if you're always happy, you can't live like that. I think on a night out when we're always drunk, we're probably the happiest we've ever been, but we make some terrible decisions. And he speaks about how, like, as a psychologist, he's seen people that are chronically happy and their life just tumbles down. And I used to think happiness was the main star, but he says aim to be good. He says that doing what he's doing. He's the example, and I'll use my own example of, like, he says that when he goes around the world, people walk up to him, he changed their lives. He's saying, I was suicidal, I was homicidal, I was all this, and reading your books and your content, it changed my life. He says, yeah, that doesn't make him happy. Although it's good to help them, but he sees humans at their worst point. He sees people that are triumph, which is incredible, but he still says that at one point this person was suicidal, and he started crying because he's seen people at their worst point. But him kind of striving to be what he is has allowed him to kind of have that impact. So even though it makes him unhappy to see all these people walk up to him and see them at their initial despair, it doesn't make him happy, but he's doing the right thing in terms of helping them through it. And I think that, sometimes when you aim to be the best person you can be, there might be moments in your life where you might be unhappy, but you're doing the right thing, kind of improving lives. And I think even with me, as I grow, there's things that, I'll be honest, like, I'm very transparent. I try to be transparent as I kind of achieve more success. I feel insecurity in terms of, I feel like I make other people feel insecure. So as I kind of get more successful, I feel like when I talk to people, I make them feel bad. And I feel like it might be wrong, but I feel like that's the feeling I get. But it doesn't mean I have to stop pursuing what I'm pursuing, because I know I'm helping so many people. But that feeling's never going to go away. I feel like I can either be happy and just stop, just so I don't make people insecure, or I can keep striving for greatness. And even though that might come of it, all the bad might come of it, I might not maybe happy, but at least I'm doing what's most important. And I think that when you just aim for happiness, you might not always, happiness doesn't equate to doing the best thing possible. And I think, even as a doctor, you save so many lives, but maybe as a doctor, you might see people pass away, you might see people at their worst state. That might not make you happy, but being a doctor and help people is the most important thing. And I think aim to be as good as you can be, aim to make impact, and if happiness falls upon you, you should be grateful for it. And that's where I see it.
Mate, they're very wise words, and I completely agree. And it's really interesting you said, because we're almost taught that we've got to strive for this for happiness.
Mm.
Like that's what society almost says. Oh, you've got to be happy, so you've got to strive for that, and you've got to strive. It's like an emotion that you've got to try and get to.
Mm.
Whereas, I guess ultimately, it's actually accepting different emotions, accepting
Exactly,
that I
exactly.
am gonna feel sad some days, and I am gonna feel emotional some days, and I am gonna be angry, but actually they're all different emotions for different parts of the day, whatever's
Exactly.
going on in your life. And I think it's really interesting because rather than striving for happiness, I guess the ultimate thing that I guess we're all sort of searching for is contentment.
Exactly, yeah.
And I think whatever emotion I'm feeling at that time, as long as I feel fulfilled in that journey, that day, that's where the true happiness may be, or whatever, or true fulfillment lies. I guess that's what for me.
It's like you mentioned, like all those emotions are important. They're there for a reason. One thing I learned at a young age is emotions are call to action. When you feel some emotion, it means like you might need to do something. If you fancy a girl and you feel like you miss her, emotions tell you to go and talk to her. I think that all emotions can be good emotions, and they all got their place. They're there for a reason. I think that if you just strive to be happy all the time, that's not what life's about. You know what I'm saying? And I think, and I feel like when you learn that, you can be sad some days, happy some days, it makes you understand. It makes you kind of do what you need to do, regardless. I think that just changed my life in terms of I used to just feel like I need to be happy, but in the day, I think being as best you can be for yourself and for your family is probably more important than being happy, because happiness is fleeting. But as you mentioned, contentment, fulfillment is what matters most, and an adventure.
Love that, mate. To talk to you, so, we're sitting here talking. You graduated earlier this year.
Yeah.
But during studying, so you obviously had reading with Austin as well.
Yep.
And then you've also launched a networking community as well, the Gen Z Club, which I've followed and I've seen put on some amazing events as well.
It's crazy.
Studying through that, how do you find the time to then your brand, reading with Austin, and how do you juggle all them things?
I think on a bigger level, the things that you love, you make time for. And I think I love what I do. I think when you enjoy what you do, it's easy to make time for it, kind of thing. So that's the bigger level. But in terms of the nitty gritty, which is important, I've read books like The 4 Hour Work Week, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and doing things like planning your weeks weekly. A lot of people plan daily, but I think if you look at the quadrant of time, you've got important, urgent, important, non-urgent, not important, urgent, not urgent, not important. And I feel like that kind of book kind of outlined the process. So a lot of people focus on important and urgent, which means you're always putting out fires, because it's important but it's urgent, so you're putting out fires. Whereas what I focus on is the important, non-urgent, so that they never become urgent. So if you focus on important before it becomes urgent, you'll never be putting out fires. You kind of stop the fire altogether. And I'm saying it's like, if you let a fly into your room, you can leave the door open and try and kill the flies when they come to the room, or you can close the door and prevent the flies coming in the first place. And I think in my life, it's all about, one, doing the important tasks before they become urgent, so I don't have to worry about putting out fires all the time. And two, I think massively is outsourcing. With Gen Z Club, you've got people that kind of do things for us, work for us, and I think outsourcing is the massive part of my life where I don't need to. One quote that I love is, "Do what you do best and delegate the rest." And I feel like I've mastered delegating the tasks that I might not be great or might not have time for in an effective way. So it's a mixture of planning your weeks efficiently. It's a mixture of delegating when it needs to be, and enjoying what you do as well, and just hard work as well sometimes.
Mate, I'm sitting here, I guess 20 odd years older than you, and you're talking to me and stuff that I struggle with. In honesty, like I spin a lot of plates, run various different businesses, and all stuff that I enjoy doing actually. But I've got a young family as well, and trying to balance them things is tough sometimes. And it's listening to you. And I've read the 4 Hour Work Week as well. It's a great Tim Ferriss. I follow him as well, and he's fascinating. But yeah, it's fascinating to listen to you talk about it. I'm interested to talk a little bit more about because obviously we've got a community as well, county business clubs, and we've built up. But I've seen the Gen Z Club and what you've achieved with that is phenomenal.
Thank you.
And what's the plans for that moving forward?
So it's crazy because it came about as just an adventure, as I mentioned. Like, all my business have actually come about by an adventure. I never intended to be an entrepreneur until my business started to reach some success. So it came out as an adventure. It really started on Clubhouse, my friend Denzel Jones and Pokebanks. You might have heard of Pokebanks. He's got 300,000 followers on TikTok. He's quite famous. But so we, essentially, to give background on what Gen Z Club is, we are basically a growth platform for Gen Z to kind of grow, nurture into future leaders and entrepreneurs. We provide monthly network events. We've probably had about 1,600 people come to our events over the past year since starting, and we only started last year. We were nominated for a national award, the Business Excellence Awards, which is next month. Hopefully, we win it. And
Amazing.
yeah, we've been to all of the UK. We've been to Birmingham, Loughborough, Brighton, this very building here. We sell out events in all these places. Our largest event was in July. We had about 260 Gen Zs come to our event. People travel from Scotland, Germany, Plymouth. It was incredible. And yeah. So it was a question again.
It's just no, I was just that was it. I was fascinated to hear a little bit more about it and what you're doing.
Sorry, I mentioned future plans, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's just about expansion. I think, in our first year we've reached a lot of people, but I think, Gen Z's, we want to help reach more people, and obviously we want to help. Now we understand that from a business point of view, a lot of companies want to target Gen Z's, so now we're working with businesses to help them target Gen Z's in our community. So we're looking to do in the new year now, kind of partner with companies and kind of, because right now we do charge ticket prices for our events because it help cover things, but we want to kind of make the events more free or cheaper so we can get more people in them. So maybe like the 200, 300, 400, 500 people, and then make money through the business kind of partnerships that we make as well. So our plan is to expand in terms of the actual people in the events and the impact we can create.
Amazing. Wow. Maybe we should have a chat about
Yeah.
this on another day.
Definitely.
That's really interesting and brilliant. I want to move on as we're coming up. We mentioned about, obviously, both of us mentioned about spinning plates, and as I'm constantly feeling there's that while being productive, you do the things that you love doing and blah blah blah. But what's your thoughts around? I'm keen to find out about your thoughts around sort of hustle culture and narrative around hustle culture and maybe the narrative that portrays really.
Yeah, sometimes like hustle culture, sometimes like people just working. I think you kind of need to understand like what life's about. There's one book I love, I would highly recommend. It's called The Way of the Superior Man. It's written by an author called David Dider. He speaks about how life isn't about tasks, constant tasks. You need to actually live your life as well. And I think that if you are in the hustle, I think there's one poem for our work where it said the beautiful poem, and it says something along the lines of listen to the music before the song's over. Listen to the music before the song's over. And I think that we can get so caught up in our day-to-day lives and hustling. And as you mentioned earlier, what we're hustling for, when we get there, it's kind of anticlimactic. I think it comes down to enjoying the process of it and listen to the music, like listen to like enjoying the process, enjoying this podcast. I think, I meditate a lot. I try and be present. And feel like as a society, we aren't present enough. And before you know it, we'll be, older, and we might the moments we should cherish, we don't cherish them. So I urge people that when you are hustling, it's important to, but also cherish the hustle and enjoy the moments, show the sweet moments, and listen to the music before song's over. I think that hustle culture has kind of got the rep now of all in life that matters is hustling, but one, it's not effective to hustle 24/7. I know you're 24 hours a day, no sleep, but generally speaking, you can't live like that.
No, I wouldn't do this every day.
Yeah. So I think, what allows you to be more productive is by taking time away. Same how Tyler Effective People speaks about sharpen the saw. So it's about, if you had an axe and you're trying to hit a tree with that axe, the axe will eventually get blunt. Rather than hitting a tree with a blunt axe, you're better off going away, sharpen the axe, and come back again. So many people are trying to attack life with a blunt axe, and attacking life with glass half, what's left in the glass rather than what's best. No, attacking life with what's left of you rather than what's best for you. I think that people into hustle culture should be seen, one, as an important thing, but also equal as a lifestyle balance. Equal, we need to encourage rest culture. I mean, encourage present culture and appreciation culture and gratitude culture. I think there's all words that we should appreciate as well.
And since you say you meditate, do you?
Yeah,
regularly?
every day. Yeah,
Really?
It's changed my life. Yeah.
Really? How long have you been meditating?
Since 2019, honestly. Like I went through a period, I think, as a young CEO, with a lot of anxiety. Like I was very stressed out. I wanted things to work out in my favor. I might steal my friend's water quickly.
Yeah, mate, go for it.
So I'm basically at a very young age, I experienced a lot of anxiety, and which comes from, wanting things to work out in your favor, which you all do, but it shouldn't get to the point where it kind of, keeps up at night. And I was at 19 years old, I had a lot of anxiety for some reason. And I started, I thought I couldn't sleep. I said that, I was going to bed on time, but I was just in my bed lying there. I feel like a lot of people might be able to relate to this. I was lying there in bed, and I just couldn't like sleep. And I was thinking, I'm waking up tired, I need to do something about this. So, I think I started meditating, and it helped me sleep. And as I kind of read books now, so I read Principles, written by Ray Dalio, who's like a billionaire. He owns something called Bridgewater or something. I think it's the largest hedge fund in the world, or something like that. And he speaks about how he does meditation. Spoke about read books by David Dider. I thought, let me check it out. So during lockdown, I used to meditate quite often. I kind of saw the way I really looked at life change, and my anxiety went away. Because I think there's a saying that if you live in the past or the past, if you live in the future, you've got anxiety. If you live in the present, you're at peace. And I think that you're only really at peace when you live in the present. And if you look at any kind of situations now and anxieties, they all come from us think about something that hasn't even happened yet. I think that when I started meditating and giving my brain time to refresh itself and give my body time to restart and just sitting there and just doing nothing, just being present and appreciating the present. I've taken that kind of same meditation into other areas of my life where like I can go about my day. And what meditation does is separates you from your thoughts. So when you do meditate, your brain doesn't shut off. You're still thinking, but you can watch your thoughts as opposed to being affected by them. And I feel a lot of people are controlled by their thoughts, but and their thoughts are like clouds. It's like clouds. They come and they go. You get good ones, bad ones. They're just thoughts in the day. They're not you. Your thoughts aren't you. I think that meditation has taught me to separate myself from my thoughts. So if I get a negative thought now, I can just watch it and not kind of be one with it. And I think that that's a really important skill that I recommend everyone kind of masters. Detach yourself from your thoughts, because your thoughts aren't real. Your thoughts just just thoughts, and what you might think might not come to fruition. So I think meditation is important for me. Even in terms of football, I play some professional football. I just get so nervous before a match. But now just being able to meditate and being present now, I'm not thinking about what might happen, what might go wrong. I'm just thinking about that very moment. And if you look at any athlete, LeBron James mentions it, the reason why they're so good is because they're present in that very moment. That's when you can be the most effective in that moment. I think it's important to practice presence and gratitude.
I completely agree. I listened to one of the podcasts. I listened to a lot of the high performance podcasts, and there was Johnny Wilkinson. You talk about athletes. Johnny Wilkinson talks about exactly that, like how he went through the point of kicking the winning goal in the Rugby World Cup and that high that lasts for 30 seconds, and then he hit a real low, because that's all he'd strive for all his life, and he'd hit that high and he's hit a real low after that, because he's never going to get to that point potentially again. So you go. What he said, he talks exactly about that, about presence, just actually enjoying that moment. So he now, you listen to, he has loads of stuff about mental health, but he talks about being present, and in the way that kicking that goal in the Rugby World Cup, he gets the same joy and satisfaction as he did from doing the washing up, because whatever he's doing at that moment in time, he's present in that. But that, again, it becomes like therapy for me, to be honest. That's why I do the podcast. But it worked out. So I often struggle. I don't meditate, and I often struggle to switch off, because you're spinning a plate, your brain's always working, and I struggle to.
That's why you need to meditate.
That's exactly why I need to meditate. I've looked into it, and many people who have come on have exactly that, recommended that, to try and switch that brain off and be able to be. Because like I said, I've got a young family, and I want to be a good father, I want to be a good husband, as well as a great businessman, and you want to do all of those things. But ultimately, the key is to whatever you're doing at that moment, like we are right now, sitting in, being present right in this very moment, and actually appreciating that time. And I think that gets lost a lot. It could be, again, back to that hustle culture and that, being busy, and it's almost like we wear being busy as a badge of honor.
And also,
trying to come away from that.
Busy doesn't mean productive as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Mate, I completely agree with you. Yeah. Be a busy fool.
Yeah, exactly. You could be going nowhere fast.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Look, mate, we're coming towards it. Before we do the quick fire questions, tell me, what does the future hold for Austin?
More adventures. Yeah, I know people have got 5-year goals, and I've got my own goals that I read every single morning, which are important, but I like to kind of put myself in I want to do this, because I like to be detached from, I never know where my life might take me. The Gen Z Club is one of the biggest blessings in my life, but 2 years ago, if you asked me if I have a networking community of thousands of Gen Zs, I wouldn't have thought so, and I wouldn't have wanted that. But obviously now I have it, and I'm grateful for it. So I'd like to put myself in boxes. I had to make sure I'm always progressing 1% every single day, keep accumulating in all areas of my life. But I think the main thing is just more adventures, because that's what life's about.
Mate, absolutely love it. Well, look, we're going to finish with our quick fire questions, as we have on every episode so far. So tell me, one piece of advice would you give to a young entrepreneur starting out?
Oh, one piece of advice is a lot, because entrepreneurship is hard. Practice patience and gratitude. I think that if you look at any success story, anything, Rome wasn't built in a day, but can't be destroyed in a day either. And I think that you really need to practice patience in your business. I think if you look at any successful business owner, I've got a lot of people around me that have got good business, but they don't realize they start from the age of 16, 15, and it takes time. And I feel like with our generation, especially with social media, people feel like they want it fast. But I'd say, practice patience. I'd say, do it, commit to it, and give yourself a time limit for how it can work out. It's too many people are quick to jump ship, whereas no matter what you do, you need to give it time to nurture it. It's like a seed. if you plant a seed, no matter how much you water it, no matter how much food and nutrients you give it, the seed needs time to grow. Like you can't make a tree grow in 10 days. No matter how much water you put in that seeds, it can't grow in 10 days. I think when you do start out, understand that it's going to take a very, very, very long time. But as long as you're seeing constant results, keep going.
Who's been the biggest inspiration throughout your life and why?
I say my dad's. Yeah, I think Gary V's up there as well. You know, I think he's given me this perspective I have in my life, you know, in terms of, you know, just trying to be happy and looking at the details of life that a lot of people don't speak about, like patience, gratitude, look at a different perspective. But I think growing up under my dad and seeing how he kind of operated, you know, he came from nothing. He grew up in Nigeria in a very small village, and he built a great life for himself just literally by working hard. I think that when you got a man who's like a real life success story in your life, I think, and obviously I think he gives me a lot of tough love and good love, and I think, you know, just how other people speak about him, it's just great to see. So I say like my dad's big inspiration in my life just because of the man he is.
Mate, you've sort of answered this anyway. As you've told us about lots of books and stuff, but is there a book podcast that you can recommend to our listeners?
It's so hard because
other than the few that
yeah, it's so difficult. Whenever somebody asks my favorite books, I always think I don't have kids, but I said if I did have kids, it would not name my favorite child because it's so difficult. There's so many good ones, but if I can name the quick fire ones, I would say my favorites top of my head are The Power of Habit. I think that one changed my life in terms of it basically tells you how to make a habit, how to break a habit. So like that was the first time I read a book which actually taught me so much. And I said, wow, like I didn't learn this in school. There's so much I don't know. And he said the more you know, the more you realize how stupid you are because you know so much. There's so many things that you don't know, kind of thing. So I say The Power of Habit. I would say Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. I think that book just touches on so many avenues of life. And I honestly think if there's one book you should read, and if you only can read one book, that'll be that book. Because I think what the book speaks about can be applied in so many areas of your life. So I think that book is so powerful. Like it's really, really powerful. Whoever wrote it, I don't know who wrote it, but like they were blessed. Like it was a really So Seven Habits of Highly Effective People, Power of Habit, and I think those are the main two I'll say have had a big impact.
Mate, amazing. Right, last one. Finally, what is your one rule for living a fulfilled life?
My main rule is be consistent or don't do it all. And I think that's so important. I think you cannot build anything without consistency. Like it's impossible. Like consistency, like my friend spoke about, it's like it's kind of like its own frequency. And no matter what you do, you won't get anywhere if you're not consistent. And I feel like whatever I do, until I get the point where I can be consistent with it, I won't start it. Like I won't start a YouTube channel, then not post for a year. I'll start when I'm ready to post consistently. And even that's like once a month, once a week, but you need to build that kind of momentum, be consistent, otherwise we won't get anywhere. You look at all the biggest companies in the world, all your favorite TV shows, they're all consistent. EastEnders has been consistent for how many years? So people look to inspire to be certain people, but the very people that they consume are consistent, but they don't want to be consistent. It's like if EastEnders can be consistent, but you can't be, how are you ever going to get to that level? So in my life, my biggest thing is be consistent, do it consistently, or don't do it all.
Mate, listen, what an absolutely fascinating conversation. Like I said, I've followed you for a while on social media and love the content that you put out and the message that actually from your generation, from Gen Z, and putting that message out there, because I do think that there is a bad narrative out there around, like I say, around hustle culture and that. But listening to you talk and the you know what you chat about is really, really profound and a really strong important message, not just for that generation, but I'm listening to you and learning from you, which is amazing. So, mate, really grateful for you coming on. Thanks. It was a brilliant episode, and I'd love to catch up with you at another time and we're bouncing some ideas around together.
100%. That's on camera. Thank you so much.
And that is a wrap. Awesome.
Amazing.